My daughter-in-law called me with the sweetest voice and said, "Margaret, don't worry about anything anymore. We're taking care of everything. Your house, your accounts, your medical bills. Just relax and enjoy your golden years." I smiled into the phone and said, "Thank you, sweetheart. You're so thoughtful." What she didn't know was that I had already discovered what taking care of everything really meant. But we'll get to that. Right now, I'm just glad you're here with me. Please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. That way, I'll know how far my story has traveled.
My name is Margaret Chen, and at 68 years old, I thought I had seen everything life could throw at me. I'm a widow. My husband, Thomas, passed away 7 years ago from a sudden heart attack. We had built a beautiful life together, a successful catering business, a comfortable home in the suburbs of Seattle, and one son, Julian. Julian was 39 when this story began. He'd always been ambitious, charming, and just a little too eager to climb the social ladder. He married Vanessa Reed 3 years ago, a 32-year-old marketing executive with a polished smile and designer everything. I'll admit, I never fully warmed to Vanessa. There was something calculated behind her compliments, something cold in the way she assessed every room she entered. But Julian loved her, and I wanted him to be happy. After all, he was my only child. The first warning sign came about 4 months before everything unraveled. Julian and Vanessa invited me to dinner at their modern downtown condo. Over wine and an expensive charcuterie board, Vanessa leaned forward with concern in her eyes. "Margaret, we've been worried about you," she said gently. "Living alone in that big house, managing all those bills and accounts. It's a lot for someone your age." "I'm managing just fine," I replied. "But what if something happens?" Julian chimed in. "What if you fall or forget to pay something important? We want to help, Mom. Let us take some of that burden off your shoulders." They were so earnest, so caring. And part of me, the part that sometimes felt the weight of loneliness, wanted to believe them. So I agreed to let them help. Over the next few weeks, Julian asked for access to my bank accounts, just to set up automatic payments, Mom, and requested copies of important documents, my will, property deeds, insurance policies. "It's for your safety," Vanessa assured me. "In case of an emergency, we need to know where everything is." I hesitated, but eventually, I handed over what they asked for. After all, Julian was my son. And Vanessa, well, she seemed like she genuinely cared. Then one Saturday morning, I logged into my bank account to check my balance. My savings account, $215,000 accumulated over decades of hard work, my late husband's life insurance and careful investments, showed a balance of $1,800. My hands shook as I clicked through the transaction history. Transfers. Dozens of them. All authorized through my online banking. All going to an account under Julian and Vanessa's names. I felt the room spin. I called the bank immediately. The representative, a kind young man named David, reviewed my account. "Mrs. Chen, these transfers were made using your login credentials. They were authorized. But if you believe this is fraud..." "It's my son," I whispered. I hung up before he could respond. For 3 hours, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the wall, trying to understand. How could he do this? Why? Then my phone rang. The call was from Julian. His voice was bright, almost giddy. "Hey Mom, great news. Vanessa and I are buying a beach house in Malibu. Can you believe it? We found the perfect place. Ocean views, private beach access, everything we've dreamed of." My throat tightened. "That sounds expensive." "It is," he laughed. "But we got an amazing deal, and with our new investments, we can afford it. Oh, and we're also planning a trip to Europe next month. Paris, Rome, the French Riviera. Vanessa's always wanted to see the Amalfi Coast." "Julian," I said carefully, "where did you get the money for all this?" There was a pause. Then, in a tone that made my blood run cold, he said, "Don't worry about it, Mom. You've got your pension and Social Security. You'll be fine. You took my savings." Another pause. Longer this time. "I didn't take anything," he said, his voice shifting to something defensive. "You gave me access. You wanted me to help manage your finances. I'm investing that money wisely, for both of us. When the returns come in, you'll thank me." "Julian, that was my entire life savings." "Mom, you're being dramatic. You don't need that much money at your age. What are you going to do, buy a sports car?" He laughed. "Vanessa and I are building our future. You should be happy for us." Bring back my money. Now. His tone turned cold. I'll think about it. But honestly, Mom, you're overreacting. We're family. This is what families do, they help each other. He hung up. I sat there, trembling with rage and disbelief. But as the shock faded, something else began to rise inside me. Something sharp and calculating. Julian had no idea what he had actually done, because the account he drained wasn't my only account. It was a decoy. You see, 7 years ago, when my husband Thomas died, I learned a very important lesson. Trust, but verify. Thomas had a business partner who tried to cheat me out of my share of the catering company after he passed. It was a brutal legal battle, but I won. And in the process, I learned how to protect myself. So when I restructured my finances, I did something smart. I kept a visible checking and savings account with a modest amount, around $20,000 in checking, and what appeared to be $215,000 in savings. This was the account I gave Julian access to. But what Julian didn't know was that the bulk of my wealth, over $680,000, was held in a revocable living trust under a different bank, under my late husband's name, the Thomas Chin Family Trust. I was the sole trustee and beneficiary. Julian had never bothered to ask about the trust. He'd never shown interest in the details of my finances. He just saw dollar signs and assumed he knew everything. The $215,000 he stole? That was the bait. And he took it. But the real kicker? The house he thought he could manipulate me into signing over. The beautiful 4-bedroom home in Queen and with views of Elliott Bay wasn't even in my name. It was held in the trust, protected from creditors, lawsuits, and greedy relatives. Julian had stolen a small fortune, yes. But he had no idea that what he didn't steal was worth 3 times as much. And now, he was about to learn a very expensive lesson. I didn't call Julian back. Instead, I made 3 phone calls. First, I called my attorney, Linda Zhao, a sharp, no-nonsense estate lawyer who had helped me set up the trust years ago. Linda, my son just stole $215,000 from my savings account. I need to file a police report and start legal proceedings. She was silent for a moment. Margaret, are you absolutely sure you want to do this? He's your son. I'm sure. All right, let's build the case. I'll contact the bank's fraud department and get a forensic accountant involved. We'll need every transaction documented. Second, I called the bank and formally reported the theft. They froze the account and started an investigation. Third, I called my friend and former neighbor, Helen Park, a retired detective who had worked financial crimes for 20 years. Helen, I need advice. My son cleaned out my savings, and I think his wife put him up to it. What do I do? Helen didn't hesitate. You document everything. Save every text, every email, every voicemail. Get witness statements if anyone heard them talk about your money. And Margaret, don't tell them what you're doing. Let them think they got away with it. Why? Because people get sloppy when they think they've won. They'll make mistakes. And those mistakes will bury them in court. 3 days later, Vanessa showed up at my door unannounced. She was dressed impeccably, cream blouse, tailored pants, expensive sunglasses perched on her head. She smiled warmly as I opened the door. Margaret, hi. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by. Can I come in? I stepped aside and let her in. We sat in the living room, and she made small talk, asking about my garden, my book club, whether I'd been sleeping well. Then she got to the point. Margaret, Julian told me you were upset about the money. Upset, I said calmly. That's one way to put it. She sighed, leaning forward with a look of sympathy. I understand. Change is hard, especially at your age. But you have to trust us. Julian knows what he's doing. That money is being invested in properties and opportunities that will grow exponentially. In a few years, you'll have more than you started with. And if I don't? Her smile faltered. Well, that's the risk with any investment. But Julian is very savvy. Vanessa, I interrupted. I didn't authorize those transfers. That's called theft. Her expression hardened. You gave him access to your accounts. Legally, that's authorization. Did I authorize him to empty them? Did I authorize him to buy a beach house and take a European vacation with my money? She sat back, crossing her arms. You're being selfish, Margaret. Julian is your son. Everything you have is going to be his eventually anyway. We just expedited things. Expedited, I repeated slowly. Interesting choice of words. She stood up, smoothing her blouse. Look, I came here to make peace. But if you're going to be difficult, then fine. Just know that if you push this, we'll fight back. We have lawyers. We have resources. And we'll make sure everyone knows you're a bitter, senile old woman who can't manage her own affairs. Get out of my house. Her eyes flashed with anger. Gladly. Enjoy your lonely little life, Margaret. Don't come crying to us when you need help. She left, slamming the door behind her. I stood there for a moment, then picked up my phone and texted Helen. She just threatened me. It's all recorded. You see, I'd set up a small camera on my bookshelf that morning. Just in case. Helen texted back immediately. Perfect. Save that footage. We've got her. A week later, Julian came by. Alone this time. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his usual confidence replaced by something frantic. Mom, we need to talk. I let him in. He paced the living room, running his hands through his hair. The bank froze the account. They're saying it's under investigation for fraud. Did you report me? Yes. He stopped pacing and stared at me. Why would you do that? I'm your son. And you're a thief. I'm not a thief, he shouted. I was trying to help. That money was just sitting there doing nothing. It was my money, Julian. Not yours. His face crumpled. Mom, please. If this goes forward, I could lose everything. My job, my reputation. Vanessa will leave me. Please, just call them and tell them it was a misunderstanding. Was it? He hesitated. I'll pay you back. I swear. Just give me time. How much time? I don't know. A year. Maybe 2. I shook my head. You don't have 2 years, Julian. The investigation is already underway. He fell to his knees, actually knees, sobbing. Please, Mom. I'm begging you. I made a mistake. I let Vanessa get in my head. She kept saying you didn't need all that money, that you'd want to see me succeed. So this was Vanessa's idea? He looked up, tears streaming down his face. She pushed me. But I should have said no. I know that now. For a moment, just a moment, I felt my resolve waver. This was my son, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd loved unconditionally. But then I remembered Vanessa's words. Everything you have is going to be his eventually anyway. We just expedited things. Julian, I said quietly, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. And now you have to face the consequences. You're going to destroy me. No, I said. You destroyed yourself. He stood up slowly, wiping his face. The grief in his eyes turned to something else. Something bitter. Fine, he said coldly. But don't expect me to ever forgive you for this. He walked out, and I let him go. The next 2 months were a blur of paperwork, depositions, and sleepless nights. Linda, my attorney, was relentless. She gathered every piece of evidence. Bank statements showing the unauthorized transfers, screenshots of Julian's social media posts flaunting his new beach house and European vacation, text messages where Vanessa discussed Margaret's money, as if it were already theirs. The forensic accountant traced every dollar. Julian had transferred the money in chunks, $30,000 here, $45,000 there, trying to avoid triggering automatic fraud alerts. But he'd been sloppy. He used the funds to put a down payment on the Malibu property, buy a luxury car, and book first-class flights and 5-star hotels across Europe. Helen, my retired detective friend, helped me document everything. She even tracked down a former colleague of Vanessa's who was willing to testify that Vanessa had once bragged about securing her future by marrying into money. She said her mother-in-law was sitting on a fortune and that she and Julian deserved it more, the woman testified in her deposition. She called Margaret too old to enjoy it anyway. When I read that, I felt the last shred of doubt disappear. The district attorney's office took the case seriously. Financial elder abuse was a growing crime, and they wanted to make an example. Julian and Vanessa were charged with grand theft, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The trial began on a cold Tuesday morning in March. I wore a simple navy dress and pearl earrings, Thomas's favorite. Linda had coached me. You need to look dignified but sympathetic. You're not a vengeful woman. You're a victim seeking justice. The courtroom was intimidating. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, rows of strangers watching. Julian and Vanessa sat at the defense table with their lawyer, Marcus Langford, a smooth-talking attorney who specialized in white-collar crime. When our eyes met, Julian looked away. Vanessa, however, stared at me with cold defiance. The prosecution, led by Assistant DA Rachel Nguyen, opened with a powerful statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about betrayal. Margaret Chin is a 68-year-old widow who worked her entire life to build financial security. She trusted her son, Julian, and his wife, Vanessa, to help her manage her affairs. Instead, they systematically drained her life savings, over $215,000, to fund their lavish lifestyle. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was calculated theft. Rachel presented the evidence methodically: bank records, witness testimony, social media posts showing Julian and Vanessa's extravagant spending just days after the transfers. One particularly damning piece of evidence was a text message exchange between Julian and Vanessa. "Vanessa, did you get the money?" Julian: "Yeah, $50,000 transferred this morning." Vanessa: "Perfect. Book the Malibu viewing for Friday. And don't tell your mom yet. She'll just worry." Julian: "She won't even notice. She barely checks her accounts." The jury's faces darkened as Rachel read those words aloud. Then it was my turn to testify. Rachel guided me through my story with care. I explained how I'd trusted Julian, how I'd given him limited access to help with bills, and how I discovered the theft. "Mrs. Chin," Rachel asked gently, "when you saw your account balance, what did you feel?" I paused, letting the emotion rise naturally. I felt shattered. Not just because of the money, but because my son, my only child, had looked me in the eye and betrayed me. He stole my security, my peace of mind, and my trust. "Did you ever authorize him to take that money for personal use?" "Never. Did you know he was buying a beach house and taking luxury vacations with your savings?" "No. If I had known, I would have stopped him immediately." When Marcus Langford cross-examined me, he tried to paint me as confused and vindictive. "Mrs. Chin, isn't it true that you've had memory issues recently?" "No. But you're 68 years old. You live alone. Isn't it possible you simply forgot authorizing these transfers?" "I didn't forget," I said firmly. "I never authorized them. You gave Julian access to your accounts, correct?" "Yes, to help with automatic bill payments. Not to steal my life savings." He tried several more angles, but I didn't waver. I had the truth on my side. Then Julian took the stand. Marcus coached Julian to appear remorseful and confused. He testified that he believed he was helping me by investing the money, that he thought I'd be proud of his success. "I never meant to hurt her," Julian said, his voice breaking. "She's my mother. I love her. I thought I was doing the right thing." Rachel stood for cross-examination, and her tone was ice cold. "Mr. Chin, you said you were investing your mother's money. Did you inform her of these investments?" I meant to, but..." "Yes or no?" "No." "Did you ask her permission before transferring $215,000 from her account?" "Not explicitly, but..." "Yes or no?" "No." "Did you use that money to buy a beach house in Malibu?" Julian hesitated. "Yes." "Did you use it to book a month-long vacation to Europe?" "Yes." "Did you use it to buy a $90,000 luxury car?" "Yes." Rachel leaned forward. "Mr. Chin, you didn't invest your mother's money. You spent it. On yourself. Isn't that correct?" Julian's face crumpled. "I was going to pay her back." "When? After she ran out of money? After she lost her home? When exactly were you planning to pay her back?" He had no answer. Vanessa's testimony was even worse. She tried to play the innocent wife, claiming she had no idea where the money came from. "I trusted Julian," she said sweetly. "He told me he'd gotten a bonus at work. I had no reason to doubt him." Rachel pulled up the text messages. "Mrs. Chin, this message from you to Julian says, 'Did you get the money?' What money were you referring to?" Vanessa paled. I don't remember." "You don't remember? This was just 4 months ago. I might have been talking about his paycheck." "His paycheck?" Rachel raised an eyebrow. The very next message says, "Perfect. Book the Malibu viewing." "Were you viewing a $1.2 million beach house on his paycheck?" Vanessa stammered. We had savings." Rachel cut her off. "Bank records show that you and Julian had less than $8,000 in savings before these transfers. Where did the rest come from?" Vanessa's polished mask cracked. "I don't know. Maybe Julian had other accounts." "Mrs. Chin, stop lying. You knew exactly where that money came from, didn't you?" Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Fine. Yes. I knew. Julian told me his mother had more money than she needed, and she was old. She wasn't going to use it. We have our whole lives ahead of us. Why should it just sit in a bank account?" The courtroom went silent. Rachel smiled coldly. "Thank you for your honesty." The jury deliberated for just over 4 hours. When they returned, Their faces were grim. The judge asked, "On the charge of grand theft, how do you find the defendants?" "Guilty." "On the charge of financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult?" "Guilty." "On the charge of conspiracy to commit fraud?" "Guilty." Julian's face went white. Vanessa stared straight ahead, her jaw clenched. I sat very still, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Justice had been served. But my son was going to prison. 2 weeks later, we returned for sentencing. The judge, a stern woman named Honorable Diane Kirsch, listened to impact statements. I stood and spoke directly to Julian. "You were my whole world," I said quietly. "After your father died, you were all I had left. I would have given you anything, if you had just asked. But you didn't ask. You took. You lied. And you showed me that the son I raised no longer exists." Julian wouldn't look at me. The judge spoke. "Mr. Chun, Mrs. Vanessa Chun, what you did was not a mistake. It was a calculated betrayal of trust. You stole from a woman who loved you unconditionally, and you showed no remorse until you were caught." She sentenced Julian to 6 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 3. Vanessa received 4 years, plus mandatory restitution of the full amount stolen, plus penalties, totaling over $300,000. Their Malibu beach house was seized. The luxury car was sold. Their assets were frozen. As the bailiff led them away in handcuffs, Vanessa looked back at me with pure hatred. Julian just looked empty. The day after sentencing, I woke up in my quiet house and made coffee, just like I always did. The morning light filtered through the kitchen windows. Birds chirped outside. Everything looked exactly the same. But nothing felt the same. I had won. The law had sided with me. Justice had been served. So why did I feel so hollow? I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee growing cold, staring at my phone. Part of me wanted Julian to call, to say something. Anything. An apology. An explanation. Even anger would have been better than this silence. But the phone stayed quiet. Helen came by that afternoon with groceries and her signature lemon bars. "How are you holding up?" she asked, setting everything on the counter. "I don't know," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel relief? Vindication? Instead, I just feel tired." Helen sat down across from me and took my hand. "Margaret, what you did took incredible courage. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. You can be right and heartbroken at the same time. I keep thinking about when he was little," I said quietly. "He used to make me birthday cards with crayon drawings. He'd save his allowance to buy me flowers. That little boy loved me so much. What happened to him?" "I don't know," Helen said softly. "But the man he became made choices. And those choices had consequences." 3 weeks after sentencing, I received a letter. It was from Vanessa, postmarked from the Women's Correctional Facility. My hands shook as I opened it. "Margaret, I hope you're happy. You've destroyed 2 lives because you couldn't let go of money you were going to die with anyway. Julian is falling apart in there. He's lost weight. He won't talk to anyone. The other inmates target him because of what he's in for. He's suffering. And for what? Your pride. You could have forgiven us. You could have shown mercy. Instead, you chose revenge. I want you to know something. Julian and I were planning to tell you. We were going to include you in our new life. Invite you to the beach house. Take you on trips with us. But you had to ruin everything. You'll die alone, Margaret. And when you do, no one will mourn you. Your son certainly won't. I hope the money keeps you warm at night. Vanessa." I read it twice, feeling my hands tremble with rage. Then I did something that surprised even me. I laughed. The sheer audacity of it. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the complete refusal to take responsibility. I folded the letter carefully, put it in a folder labeled Evidence, and called Linda. "Vanessa just sent me a threatening letter from prison," I said. "Can we use this to extend her sentence?" Linda chuckled darkly. "Oh, Margaret, I like the way you think." Word spread quickly in our community about what happened. Some people were sympathetic. Others whispered behind my back. She sent her own son to prison over money. Family should forgive family. She must be so cold-hearted. But something unexpected happened too. Other women started reaching out to me. First, it was my neighbor, Susan, a woman in her 70s. She came to my door one afternoon with tears in her eyes. "Margaret, I need to tell you something," she said. "My daughter has been taking money from me for years. Small amounts at first, $500 here, $1,000 there. She says it's for emergencies, but I see her buying designer purses and expensive dinners. I've been too afraid to say anything because she's my daughter. "Oh, Susan," I said, pulling her into a hug. "After hearing your story, I realized I'm not protecting her. I'm enabling her. I called my lawyer yesterday. Then came Margaret from my book club. Then Patricia from church. Then a woman I'd never met who found me through a local senior center. All of them had similar stories, children, grandchildren, or caregivers who had stolen from them. All of them had stayed silent out of shame, fear, or misplaced loyalty. You gave me the courage to speak up," one woman told me. "You showed me that loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you." That's when I realized my pain had a purpose. Linda and I started hosting free legal workshops at the senior center, protecting yourself from financial abuse. Helen joined us, teaching seniors how to recognize warning signs and document suspicious activity. We helped over 40 families in the first 6 months alone. One woman, Dorothy, came to us after her son forged her signature to take out a reverse mortgage on her home. We helped her file a police report and get the mortgage reversed. Her son was prosecuted. Another man, George, discovered his daughter-in-law had been siphoning money from his veterans' benefits. We connected him with resources, and he recovered most of the funds. Every person we helped, every family we saved, it gave my suffering meaning. I wasn't just a bitter old woman who sent her son to prison. I was a survivor who refused to be silent. 18 months into his sentence, I received a letter from Julian. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. "Mom, I don't know if you'll read this. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. Prison has given me a lot of time to think. Too much time, maybe. I've replayed everything in my head 1,000 times. The transfers, the lies, the moment I looked you in the eye and told you I was helping you. I've tried to justify it, to convince myself I wasn't that bad. But I was. I was a thief. I was a liar. And worst of all, I was a coward who blamed everyone but himself. Vanessa didn't force me to steal from you. She planted the idea, sure, but I made the choice. I told myself you'd never notice, that you didn't need the money, that I'd pay you back someday. But the truth is, I felt entitled to it. I looked at your savings and saw my inheritance. I thought, why should I wait until she's dead? That's the part that haunts me most. I treated you like you were already gone. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve to be forgiven. But I need you to know, I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. I'm taking classes here, accounting, business ethics, addiction counseling. I'm trying to become someone you could be proud of again. I don't know if that's possible, but I have to try. Vanessa divorced me 8 months ago. She blamed me for everything, said I dragged her into it. I don't even have the energy to be angry about it anymore. I understand now that I lost the most important person in my life because I valued money more than love. I don't know if you'll ever want to see me again. But if you do, I'll be here. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry I forgot that for a while. Julian. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. Helen asked me about it over tea the next week. Are you going to write back? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks it's just more manipulation. What does your gut tell you? I thought about it for a long time. My gut tells me he's learning. Maybe. But learning doesn't erase what he did. No, Helen agreed. It doesn't. If I forgive him, does that mean what he did was okay? No, Helen said firmly. Forgiveness doesn't mean what he did was acceptable. It means you're choosing not to carry the weight of his choices anymore. I looked out the window at my garden. Roses I'd planted with Thomas 20 years ago, blooming despite everything. I'm not ready yet, I said finally. Maybe someday, but not yet. Helen squeezed my hand. And that's okay too. 6 months later, I received another letter from Julian. This time, there were no excuses. No requests. Just updates. He told me about his classes. About the support group he'd joined for people who'd committed financial crimes. About the work he was doing to understand why he'd made those choices. I'm learning that I tied my self-worth to money and status, he wrote. I thought having more meant I was more. I was wrong. He didn't ask me to visit. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just shared. And slowly, over the next year, his letters continued. One day, I realized I was looking forward to them. Julian was released after serving 3.5 years. He came out to a very different world than the one he'd left. No beach house. No luxury car. No Vanessa. He moved into a small apartment and got a job as a bookkeeper for a nonprofit organization. He didn't contact me right away. Instead, he sent a letter. I know I don't have the right to ask for a place in your life again. But if you're ever willing to meet for coffee, I'd like that. No expectations. No demands. Just a chance to see you. I thought about it for 2 weeks. Then I texted him. Tuesday, 2 p.m. The cafe on Pine Street. When I walked into the cafe, I almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost weight, not in an unhealthy way, but in a way that made him look older, more weathered. His hair was starting to gray. He wore a simple button-down shirt and jeans. He stood when he saw me, his hands shaking. "Hi, Mom." "Julian." We sat down, and for a moment, neither of us knew what to say. Finally, he spoke. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I would either." He nodded, accepting that. We talked for an hour. Not about the past, not yet. Just about small things. His job. My workshops. The weather. It felt strange. Fragile. But it felt like a beginning. As I got up to leave, Julian said quietly, "I'm paying you back. Every dollar. It'll take years, but I'm doing it." "I know," I said. "I don't expect you to trust me again. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to earn it back." I looked at him, really looked at him. And for the first time in 4 years, I saw a glimpse of the son I used to know. "We'll see," I said. And I meant it. Rebuilding trust is not a straight line. Some weeks, Julian and I would meet for coffee and talk for hours. Other weeks, I'd cancel our plans because the pain was still too fresh. He never complained. He never pushed. He showed up, consistently, patiently, and let me heal at my own pace. He started making monthly payments into my account. Small amounts, $200, $300, whatever he could afford from his modest salary. He sent me the receipts every time, along with a brief note. Month 6, $250 paid. $299,750 to go. I'm not giving up. Month 12, $300 paid. Still here. Still trying. I kept every receipt. Not because I needed proof, but because they represented something bigger than money. They represented accountability. Change. Growth. One day, about a year after his release, Julian asked if he could take me to dinner. "Nothing fancy," he said quickly. "Just, I want to cook for you. At my apartment. Like I used to when I was in college." I hesitated. "You don't have to," he added. "I understand if." "What time?" I asked. His apartment was small but tidy. He'd made spaghetti carbonara, my favorite, and set the table with mismatched plates and a single candle. "I know it's not much," he said nervously. "It's perfect," I replied. We ate slowly, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about his work at the nonprofit, about the people he was helping manage their finances. People who'd made mistakes, like him. "I feel like I'm finally doing something that matters," he said. "Something that's not just about me." "I'm proud of you," I said quietly. He looked up, his eyes filling with tears. "You are?" "Yes." He set down his fork and took a shaky breath. "Mom, I need to say something. I've been working with a therapist, trying to understand why I did what I did. And I realized I spent so much of my life trying to prove I was successful, trying to be someone impressive, that I forgot the most important thing." "What's that?" "That you already loved me. I didn't need to prove anything. I just needed to be a good son. And I failed." I reached across the table and took his hand. "You did fail," I said honestly. "You hurt me more than anyone ever has. But Julian, failure doesn't have to be the end of your story. What matters is what you do next." "I want to do better," he whispered. "I want to be the son you deserve." "Then keep doing what you're doing. Keep showing up. Keep being honest. Keep growing." He nodded, gripping my hand tightly. "I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry I forgot to show it." "I love you too," I said. "And I'm choosing to believe in second chances." 6 months later, something extraordinary happened. Julian asked if he could attend one of my financial abuse workshops. "Not to speak or anything," he said. "Just to listen. To learn. To see the damage from the other side." I said yes. He sat in the back row, listening as survivors shared their stories. Elderly men and women who'd been robbed by children, grandchildren, caregivers, people they'd loved and trusted. I watched his face as he listened. I saw shame, grief, and something else, determination. After the workshop, an older man named Frank approached Julian. "You're Margaret's son, aren't you? The one who, well..." Julian nodded. "Yes, sir. I am." Frank studied him for a moment. "Why are you here?" "Because I need to understand what I did. Really understand it. Not just apologize, but see the harm I caused." Frank was quiet for a moment. Then he said, My daughter stole $180,000 from me. She hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. I don't know if she ever will. I'm sorry, Julian said quietly. What made you come back? Frank asked. What made you want to make it right? Julian glanced at me. My mom gave me consequences. Real ones. And that forced me to face what I'd done. If she'd just forgiven me right away, I don't think I would have changed. I would have just done it again. Frank's eyes welled up. I wish I'd had the courage to do what your mother did. Julian extended his hand. It's never too late, sir. Not for accountability. Not for change. They shook hands, and I felt something shift in my chest. My son wasn't perfect. He might never fully undo the damage he'd caused. But he was trying. And that mattered. Word spread about Julian's attendance at the workshop. Some people were angry. How dare he show his face there? Others were curious. Do people like him actually change? But a few, just a few, reached out to him. A woman whose son had stolen from her asked if Julian would be willing to talk to him. I don't know if it'll help, she said. But maybe hearing from someone who went through it. Julian agreed. He met with her son, a 41-year-old man named Derek who drained his mother's retirement fund to support a gambling addiction. I don't know what they talked about. Julian never told me. But 2 weeks later, Derek turned himself in and entered a treatment program. His mother called me, crying. I don't know what your son said to him, but it worked. Thank you. Julian started speaking at workshops, not as an expert, but as a cautionary tale. I thought I was entitled to my mother's money, he'd say. I convinced myself she didn't need it, that I deserved it more. I was wrong, and I destroyed the most important relationship in my life because of greed. He talked about prison, about regret, about the long, painful process of change. If you're thinking about taking money from a parent, a grandparent, anyone who trusts you, don't, he'd say. It's not worth it. No amount of money is worth losing the people who love you. Some people walked out during his talks, but others listened, and a few even came forward to admit what they'd done, before it was too late. 5 years after Julian's release, we stood together at Thomas's grave. It was the anniversary of his death, a day I usually spent alone. But this year, Julian had asked if he could come with me. We stood in silence for a while, looking at the headstone. Thomas Chun, beloved husband and father, 1948, 2019. I wish Dad were here, Julian said quietly. I wish I could tell him I'm sorry for becoming someone he wouldn't be proud of. He would have been devastated by what you did, I said honestly. But I think he would have been proud of who you're becoming. Julian wiped his eyes. Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me? I thought about it. I don't know, I said. Some days I think I already have. Other days the hurt comes back, and I'm angry all over again. Forgiveness isn't a switch, Julian. It's a process. I understand. But I can tell you this, I continued. I'm grateful you came back. I'm grateful you chose to change. And I'm grateful I get to know this version of you. He turned to me, tears streaming down his face. I'm grateful you didn't give up on me. Oh, sweetheart, I said, pulling him into a hug. I sent you to prison. But I never gave up on you. We stood there for a long time, holding each other at Thomas's grave. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. So, what's the lesson in all of this? Love does not mean letting people destroy you. Forgiveness does not mean erasing consequences. And protecting yourself does not make you cruel, it makes you strong. If someone you love is stealing from you, manipulating you, or betraying your trust, you are not obligated to suffer in silence. Family is supposed to be a source of love and support, not pain and exploitation. And sometimes the greatest act of love is setting a boundary and saying, no more. Julian stole from me. I sent him to prison. And years later, we're rebuilding our relationship. Not because I pretended it didn't happen, but because I held him accountable. Real love requires real consequences. That's the truth I learned. And I hope my story helps you find the courage to protect yourself, too. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe to this channel so you don't miss future stories that might change your perspective. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my situation? Remember, you are not alone. You are not weak. And you deserve to be treated with respect, no matter who the person is. Take care of yourself. And never let anyone convince you that their greed is your responsibility. This is Margaret Chin, and this is my story.